of youth. This March, we are having a unique virtual visit, and this is one of the strategies that we use to build community, to connect, to collaborate, communicate, and build a global community of practice. Since 1999, the next generation of youth has been dedicated to informing and inspiring our youth as global citizens, citizens who are media literate and STEAM-enabled learners and leaders. We do this by working with the educators and pioneers who believe in this vision and mission, as well as partners. And one of our outstanding partners has been the National Student Leadership Conference that also is committed to cultivating youth as the leaders of today and tomorrow. We have had a partnership with them for 7.5 years in which they provide us with 10 scholarships or more a year for youth all over the world to participate in one of their amazing summer institutes. Traditionally, we do institutes on international diplomacy, engineering, journalism, film, and media, and last year we even did one on cybersecurity. These institutes are very inspiring. They expand the global understandings of our youth and help them cultivate the skills they will need to shape the future. What is very exciting is that our students are doing a series of virtual visits saying the global future is us, the youth. And today we are going to have the reflections of one of those students from Baton Rouge International School, Melissa Sanchez. And Melissa has designed and is going to lead this visit that's going to share how the Next Generation of Youth NSLC program in the summer on international diplomacy expanded her global understandings and actually inspired action. And she's going to share with you and some of her other colleagues who immediately created a website and a project to create awareness about children in armed conflict, all because of the inspiring experiences that the NSLC Summer Institute provided. I look forward to this dialogue and to providing other enriching opportunities for youth not only to be inspired, but also to take action. And now it's my pleasure to turn the program over to Baton Rouge International School. Thank you. Miss Natalie and Miss Guyan, headmistress, and Miss Andrea Hagenbras, the teacher, will now take over.
Actually, there.
Good morning.
Good morning. Well, my name is Nathalie Guyon. I'm the head of school at the Baton Rouge International School, and I would like to welcome you all, and we are very excited to help organizing this event, and also for one of our students here, our high school student, Melissa Sanchez. We hope that she will inspire other students and expand cross-cultural understanding. I would like to thank Miss Ronnie and the Next Generation of Youth to make all of this possible, as well as Mrs. Kathy Ward-Meitinger and her colleagues for sponsoring Next Generation of Youth Scholarship for the National Student Leadership Conference Summer Institute. I'm going to let Miss Andrea here introduce Miss Melissa.
Yes, thank you all, and without further ado, we would like to introduce you to our NGY Scholar, Melissa Sanchez.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Guys. Hey. Okay, so let's get started, shall we? You guys are going to be looking at that screen for the presentation, and you guys that are virtually here will be looking at presentation on the computer. Right? Do you want to click that one as well?
No, I'm just going to click this one.
Okay, so I can't see you guys, but you guys can see me, so if at any point I am out of the picture or something, you guys can tell me so that I'll go back into the picture. So during the summer of 2014, I attended an international diplomacy program at NSLC, and that picture that you guys see in the front is actually a funny story because we were in the World Bank and we weren't supposed to be in that room, but they made a mistake and then we were able to have like our 5 minute of fame, and we got to sit where all the delegates sat, and it was just amazing. So a brief understanding of what NSLC is that NSLC stands for National Student Leadership Conference, and it's basically what it is that it's where students from around the world and the nation come together during the summer at a particular university to talk about the topic of your choice. In my case, it was international diplomacy, and then from there we branched off into different subjects, and we were able to talk about children in armed conflict. And so we discussed what's going on around the world and how can we fix it. And the way that I was able to go is that I won a scholarship through NGY. Now, at NSLC, there's a couple of activities that we do, and the ones that stood out the most to me were Security Council, leadership sessions, challenge rope course, delegate meetings, world simulation, NGOs and IGOs, and living with hunger. We also had some fabulous trips to the Embassy of Saudi Arabia, the World Bank, the United States Institute of Peace, the United Nations, and we were able to stay at American University, which was quite fun and interesting because that's what the college life that we'll be having in the near future. Now, the leadership challenges were literally all over the place. An example of it would be when we went to the ropes course, we had to balance everyone on that beam that you guys see there, which was quite difficult because you have to get everyone on one side and everything. But there were also little things like making sure everyone was there at the right moment. It was more like taking initiative, which was definitely something that I learned throughout that summer. The sessions were lectures and socials, and we had guest speakers. One that stood out the most was Dr. McCarthy, and what he does for a living is that he goes around talking about peace. How wonderful is that? And he advocates so that here in our high school classes, we always have history, which teaches us about war and about everything that happened in history, but we don't have a class to teach us about peace and about what people have done and about how we can get it. So that was quite fascinating to see a man that's dedicated his life just to do that. Now, before the summer, I knew what a diplomat was, of course, but I didn't know what international diplomacy meant. So for the ones of you that don't know, it's a professional activity or skill of managing international relations, typically by a country's representatives abroad. Those people can later become politics and governors, work in businesses and law, and work for nonprofit organizations, and they also involve a lot of languages, which is something that we have here at school, so it would be something to look into. Now, we can start talking about children in armed conflict, which is what Logan, Kira, and I talked about during the summer when we were at NSLC. We learned that a child soldier is anyone associated with an armed group under the age of 18. So even if you're not necessarily in war, if you live in an area with civil unrest, you're still considered not a child soldier, but you're a child in armed conflict, which, in my opinion, shouldn't be happening anywhere because this whole thing is about how the youth is the future. And if that youth is growing up in a place where they see people shooting each other and they don't care about whose lives are being taken just for political debates, our future doesn't look so well. And the people who contribute to children in armed conflict are militant groups, and a couple examples of those are the Islamic State of Iraq, in Syria, the Free Syrian Army, the Revolutionary United Front, and governments also contribute to that. Drug cartels do as well, and human traffickers do also. And Logan, if you guys have anything to add to any of these slides, you can go ahead whenever you want. Now, children-armed conflict it's happening all around us, even if we don't see it. It could be something as broad and big as what's going on around in Afghanistan and stuff like that, how children are exposed to that conflict, but it could also be something as small as what's going on here locally. Like the people that are exposed to that kind of violence here in our community, they're definitely kids that aren't like you guys and me that live in like a community where you can wake up every day without worrying about, I don't know, who's going to shoot us or anything. I've heard a bunch of stories from Miss Andrea about when she used to live in New Jersey and how some of the students were exposed to that those gangs affiliations and stuff like that. And so even though it's not as broad and as big as war, it's still definitely a problem. Some examples of where children-armed conflict are happening is in Nigeria, Chad, Thailand, India, and they're in total in 2013 they had a kind of like a survey type thing to see how many countries were actually having children-armed conflict, and there's 22. Some of those include South Sudan, Iraq, Afghanistan, Uganda, Colombia, Mali, Lebanon, Pakistan, the Philippines, just a bunch of those that have children-armed conflict and shouldn't. So you guys might wonder, why are there children-armed conflict? Well, it's because you don't have to pay our child to go and protect their country or to go and kill someone. They also can't survive on their own, so a lot of them voluntarily go and join them because their families have been killed by war or something, so they have nowhere else to go, and they offer them food and shelter, so they're like, hey, why not? And then they're easily brainwashed since they're children, kind of like us. Well, we've been here at BRIS since we were tiny little kids, so we can easily grasp all the languages, kind of like that. If you grow up in an environment where it's all shooting and killing, you'll get an understanding that that's what happens everywhere else, and it's okay, when in actuality it's not okay. They also make loyal soldiers, and they are desensitized to violence, which means that if you and I see someone that goes up and shoots someone else, of course it's going to be a tremendous shock to us because we're not used to it. But if they see it, it's going to be like, oh, well, whatever, because it happens every day. And that's something that problem is faced a lot when talking about reintegration programs for the children-armed conflict, because they don't know. It's not like they don't know any better because they're not exposed to it. And so whenever they get back to that reintegration, it's hard for them to realize that shouldn't happen and it's wrong. And recently, I think like Monday or something, there's been a lot of it going on around the world, and they've talked about how children, a couple of them, I know the UN and UNICEF have been working on freeing them from captivity, and so sometime this week, I think it was either Monday, I don't remember, but they were freed, a lot of them. So that was quite amazing. Also, children on conflict work as sex slaves. They work as cooks. They work as spies and porters, and their parents and the villages often give them up. If you guys went to my personal project, you guys can see how even in Latin America, there's a bunch of people that are living in that civil unrest, and so the parents might think, oh, well, sending them to the military might be a good idea, but they're not adults yet, so they're still like realizing what's good from wrong, and so their parents and their villages give them up for a better future, when in actuality they're not having one. And in total in the world, there's 250,000 children on conflict, and 40% of those are women, are girls. So the majority of them are used as sex slaves and cooks, and so it's not just something that's happening to to guys because they're used as people to go shooting or something. It's also seen a lot in girls. Now, this is something that I recently found. This on the left-hand side, you guys could see what the United Nations and UNICEF have been doing to fight children armed conflict, and their action plans is right there, and it's actually been done. One of the issues was that they ordered the military command to prohibit the recruitment of use of children, and then they also released a bunch of children, and they started those reintegration programs that I was talking about that are quite hard to use, because I remember during our MUN, I was the representative for Chile, and so that was easy because Chile knew exactly where they were on that line, and they were not for it, and they were not going to have it. But for someone like one of my friends, Joyce, she had Lithuania, and Lithuania it wasn't they were for it, but they had some, and they needed some for their economy, because if not, they couldn't pay other soldiers to go. So whenever they're discussing those reintegration programs at the UN, they have to keep in mind all those factors, that who's going to pay for those programs, how are they going to get done, and all that contributes to the economy in a country. So just how children armed conflict is a problem because they're going around in that environment, we also have to find a solution to where they won't be needed anymore. So that's quite a challenge. Do you guys want to say anything? No?
I was just going to say that Logan says his microphone's not working, so he and I have just been talking about what we'd like to add, and just how difficult reintegration is, especially for children who have been recruited at a young age and have grown up around that level of violence and in that world, how it's very difficult for them to, once they're freed from their service, to live normal lives again. And also how Melissa was talking about the conflicting interests of different countries. There are 15 nations in the Security Council, so when we did our model UN, I was Australia, and Australia has 17-year-olds, because in Australia you can be an adult at 17, the same way in Great Britain at 16 you're an adult, and you can serve in the military there. So I know, one of my friends who is Great Britain, and then me as Australia, we were trying to make sure none of the laws interfered with us. And so everyone's sort of thinking about themselves, what they need to do for their political system, for their economy, their society, and that's something else that has to be considered. It's one of the reasons that the Security Council isn't always the most efficient at getting things done.
And like Kira said, there are children that aren't necessarily going to war before the age of 18, but they're definitely being exposed because countries like Great Britain and like Australia are accepting them for the training to go into it. So even if they're not sent off into war, they're still being exposed to that, holding a gun and getting training and stuff like that before the age of 18, even though the universal age for a child is above 18. So that's something also that the Security Council has been looking into in the recent years. We learned this issue and we realized how big it is and how it's happening all over the world. We didn't think it was quite fair that we were able to live our lives without having to worry about going out and protecting yourself or anything. All our worries are concerned is with schoolwork and getting to college and all that stuff, and these kids are out there worrying about whether or not they're going to live the next day. And so that's quite shocking to see how even in 21st century of the world today, I mean, we no longer live in medieval times where sword fighting and all that is allowed. You would think that people would stop this, but they don't. So we decided to put matters into our own hand, and since we are in fact high school students, there's not much that we can do to actually put a stop to it, but definitely creating awareness for people to find out about the issue, because, I mean, let's be honest, guys, how many of you actually knew this problem was as big as it is? Because I know before the summer, I knew that there are people in civil unrest, but I had no idea the magnitude of the issue and a global aspect of it until I went that summer. And so we put together this website that's called Putting Back the Pieces. Pieces as in peace, not as in a piece of pie. Yeah. And we decided on the website, we all the information that I talked about today is on that website, and it talks about how the problem happened, why it happened, and it also talks about where it's going on, and we also have a section about us section. We started the website on a bus on our way back from New York, because buses have Wi-Fi. How cool is that? We were on our way back from New York, and we started the website there. And because we all have busy lives and stuff, we haven't been quite efficient with keeping it on track. But definitely next year that's a big like on my bucket list from like #1. And you guys can also follow us on Facebook, which is Putting Back the Pieces, and on Twitter, which is also Putting Back the Pieces. And so at the end, our mission statement is that our time in Washington, D.C. opened our eyes to the harsh realities faced daily by children less fortunate than us, but also inspired and empowered us. Our aim is now to foster discussion regarding children in armed conflict and promote peaceful ways to reduce use of child soldiers, as well as expose the public to the violence that children are subjected to all over the globe. We hope that ordinary people, especially students like us, can realize their potential for effective change in the world. So the whole NGY motto or logo or whatever is that children and youth is the future. And if, like I said before, if our youth currently is growing up in that environment, our future doesn't look so promising. So definitely it's in everyone's best interest to put a stop to this as soon as possible. And we've been trying to put our little, help out by creating the website, but you guys can definitely do the same. I know the United Nations and UNICEF made this whole campaign thing to their hashtag is Children Not Soldiers, and they have a thing going on, kind of like the ASL challenge, except obviously this one isn't as big because not a lot of people know about it. So you just have to take a picture of yourself and hashtag Children Not Soldiers, and hopefully we'll show our support, and people that are actually in power will start creating and making a difference. Now our follow-up challenge is 2 questions for you. It's how does the global issue of children impacted by violence and conflict relate to you and your environment? Like I said before, children in armed conflict doesn't have to be as extreme as being in war. It can be as little, not little, but as local as being exposed to gangs and things like that. Also, next question is what actions can you take as leaders to shape a better future? So if the youth is our future, we're also youth, so we can also do something to shape a better future. And you guys can retweet your reflections and responses to those 2 hashtags that you see up there, which are Shaping the Future and Putting Back the Pieces. Kira, do you want to add anything that you think was missed?
No, you did an amazing job.
Dr. Ronnie? Are you still there?
Well, one thing I think I would add, if we have time, is that really one of the challenge questions you asked about relating to community.
Yeah, going.
Because I was just going to say, I travel a lot with my family, and I traveled to Bosnia and Herzegovina a few summers ago, and I met a lot of people whose lives really had been torn apart by conflict. And I mean, I live in Wilmington, North Carolina. We hardly have that here. My quality of life is very different from people I met there. And seeing the realities, their houses just got the bombs that are happening. And I just think it's important because most of us don't live in a world like that. We don't see these problems. We realize that there are kids our age who do suffer.
Yeah. Have you?
We're back. We found the unmute.
We were wondering what happened.
It's an amazing story and very emotionally satisfying because pioneering educators like myself and the National Student Leadership Conference, our goal is to expand those understandings and inspire action. So your demonstrated action, both in the summer in mobilizing the youth to create the website and the work and your use of the website in your International Baccalaureate program, as you know, the focus on that, and your presentation today really confirms and demonstrates the realization of our goals, you know, to inspire you. I'd love to hear from Jane in Cyprus, who has founded a university, Next Generation of Youth Club, after she experienced the NGY NSLC summer. Jane, who comes from Zambia and is working with international students at the Cyprus International University, could you share and dialogue with us now?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. So, when I heard you speaking, it was really amazing, you know, because I remember like the time that I had at the NSLC. You brought back so many memories, and they're all amazing. And then the fun part is that, you know, you realize that people actually do care. I come from Zambia, that's in Africa, and you know, we've got countries close by, neighbors like Congo. We have Nigeria with Boko Haram, and you know, we see the reality of these things, and it's not nice because the kids all the same. You know, we all have the same thoughts and the same ambitions, and you know, the fact that someone is going through something like that doesn't mean that they're worse than us. Doesn't mean that we're better than them. But it's just the situation that they found themselves in. Website, I hope to see it. You know, I hope to look it up after this. It's great. The tweets is also great and everything. So I'm inspired as well. You guys, great job. Yeah.
And we we have very limited time left, but this is I think we've begun a dialogue, and I don't know if the second student, I know one of your other colleagues, one of your other peers is involved, but what a wonderful thing that you've established relationships that are going on with people who share the passion and the commitment. And I see ongoing dialogues with youth as well as with sites and schools and organizations that are committed to shaping a better global future. I am delighted and look forward to further dialogue with the different sites. Thank you so much for joining us today, everyone, and we will look forward to the next dialogue. Remember, you can have dialogues that are not started and facilitated by me. You can reach out and we can support your ongoing community, expanded community. So, would you like to close out and say goodbye now? Would anybody like to add a closing comment?
Thank you guys for getting connected. I know I had a lot of fun preparing for this and getting the opportunity to talk to a lot of people about the issue because, like I said before, not a lot of people know about it or know about the severity of it, when in fact it is something very important. So just to have that opportunity was great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you so much. And we want to give a special thanks to the instructor who has pioneered and worked beyond Monday through Friday, Ms. Hagenbris, and to the wonderful school in Baton Rouge that is dedicated, Baton Rouge International High School, that is dedicated to preparing youth for this increasingly globalized and connected world without borders. Thank you so much, Miss Natalie, and
Thank
we'll
you,
continue our dialogues and making great things happen.